Welcome to the Palm Court Podcast. Mike Palmer here, joined as always by Megan Citron and Grant Balfour. Welcome back to the podcast, folks.
Hi.
Hi.
Glad to be here. I just want to say this is my anniversary with Christian. I just found that out.
Oh,
Someone else told me. Yeah.
nice.
On the wedding.
So we're talking about weddings, which is a nice segue here. Before we get into the honoree of the wedding ceremony, first want to welcome back to the podcast Joanne Dramko. Joanne, welcome.
Thank you for having me back. Consider myself a friend of the show.
You are. And you were on in the early days. You and Troy Winfrey were on when it was like a proto show. And now look at how we've grown.
Look at this.
Oh,
so
my
professional.
God. So professional.
So much more professional.
Yeah. We keep moving in the professional direction. That's how we roll. And several of you were back at New College for a couple of reasons. So our special guests today are Monica Lewman, formerly known as Monica Lewman, who's now Monica Wulf, who recently got married. We're going to be hearing more about that. So Monica, welcome to the Palm Court Podcast.
Thank you.
And Monica's also on the New College Alumni Association, which is going to be another theme that we're threading through here, as is Stuart Clarry, who was, in addition to your Alumni Association role that we'll be talking about on today's show, you were also Grant's roommate for several years. So if there's any funny roommate stories, perhaps Stu can share those, or either direction. So Stuart, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sure Grant and I will mutually pop some of those stories as the show progresses. I did recall actually before the show, though, that Monica managed to electrocute me or convince me to electrocute myself twice on a shorted lamp.
Interesting.
Once. And so there's all these connections come flooding back through the years. So,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that Stuart injured himself in his own dorm room by stepping on spaghetti. I didn't.
He did.
And he had a spaghetti injury.
Yeah.
But,
we all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I was happy I wasn't a vampire. It might have turned to ash in that moment, although it wasn't wood. It was, but it's kind of wood, right?
It's wood-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did get you the heart, though.
This is an example of how deep the ties go, that there's a spaghetti and a pasta and electrocution element to your backstory, which is saying something. Speaking of backstories, too, for those of you who are watching this on video, available on YouTube and Spotify, you can see behind Stuart is a pod of dolphins. I made this joke when we were setting up, so a genuine podcast. Thank you for your service, Stuart. And Monica, there's a penguin behind you because there's Antarctic themes that run through your marriage story.
As a matter of fact, we used that in the beginning of our ceremony, and only certain people picked up on it because our officiant did it straight.
Yeah,
very British.
He pronounced his R's.
Yeah.
So we were planning on doing a show about Monica's wedding and your marriage story, and then bringing in other wedding and marriage stories, which we'll try to do as much of as we can. Yeah. But we also want to stay relevant to some of the more recent events where there was a big event on campus through the Alumni Association meeting with President Corcoran, and then also Ben Brown recently resigned from the Alumni Association. So I think there's a lot more interest on that front too. So I think we'll probably want to hit on both. Before we do that, maybe we could get each of you to just quickly kind of recap who you are and how you connected to New College, the years you were there, and what you've been up to since. Maybe we'll start with you, Monica.
Okay. Well, I entered New College as a transfer student, and I was the first in my family to go to college. It was very sheltered. My parents were older. They were 42 when I came into the family, so they were much older. And I heard about New College from my composition teacher at the community college I was going to at the time. It's now Florida Gulf Coast University. At the time, it was Edison.
Glenn Whitehouse is at Florida Gulf Coast, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so I investigated it, and to be blunt, New College was the only school I applied to because I was trying to stay close to home. Most of the people in this circle know this story, but I landed at New College with the 2 years in, but Michelle Novarini was my roommate.
Yeah.
still my best friend.
Stuart Clarry to your Grant Balfour. Yes.
Exactly.
I'll say.
Ended up at New College, and just for a little background, that's where I met Henry, the man that I married.
Henry Wulf, right?
Yeah.
Explaining your new last name. Yes.
Yeah. So he entered in '86, but had taken some time off due to a family emergency. And so our first meeting was probably somewhere around January '88 during the ISP.
Yeah.
And our first dance, official spring formal, was March 1988
Yeah.
at College Hall. So that's why we went back there for the reception.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was a dormant period in your relationship, right? So like,
Yeah. Do you want me to get into that?
yeah, why not?
I
And then we'll go
mean,
to Stu after that. But let's hear real quick on the marriage narrative. Marriage narrative. Yes.
Marriage, yeah. So Henry and I met around 1988, dated for 7 years. Joanne, Grant, and Stu have heard the ups and downs of the relationship. But we finished at New College. I actually moved to Palm Beach County because Stu, Grant, and Henry all live here. I was from Fort Myers. Actually, I grew up in a retirement community called Lehigh Acres. But during my time at New College, I was working 2 part-time jobs. I was at the cop shop and I worked at Publix, so 20 hours each. Didn't have a lot of time to really interact with people. Graduated, ran screaming from the campus because there are some amazing things about a New College, but there are some not so amazing things. And I was a very practical person. I did not have a lot of financial support from my family.
Yeah.
I had some complications. Basically, when I met Henry, I was engaged to a person in my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And we had the dance. He actually went with Michelle. Michelle and I had it worked out that I said, Michelle, please go with Henry because I don't want him to go with anybody else.
Oh, wait, Moni, can you explain what the dance was? Because I don't remember this dance.
It was the spring formal.
The semi-normal?
They called it had a Great Gatsby theme. So it was so early, I don't even know if it was a semi-normal. And it was in College Hall. So I asked Michelle to go with him, and he was absolutely clueless.
This does sound like a screenplay, by the way. I was trying to figure out, is it Hugh Grant? Like, what's going on here?
Right?
Oh,
There you go.
Wow, we got a nice photo here. Yeah.
I'm the one on the left looking like
Okay.
I'm up to no good, which I was.
Yeah.
Ty Bevington, there's Michelle and Henry. Henry's roommate at the time was named Justin.
Yeah.
He was based out of Vegas. And then this is my best friend from high school, Stacy. So we all go. And
you guys, you committed to the theme here. This is, I mean, there's some hats, there's costumes, there's some work going in. Yeah.
We went costume shopping all together. And I know it was March 5th, 1988. And so the dance is over, and I declare my love for him. Basically, I was like, hey, dude, I know I'm engaged. That's complicated.
Yeah.
And so
Was it raining?
no.
Okay. I'm just trying to set the shot.
Hold a boombox over your head.
Yes.
But the reason it was complicated, and I generally knew this, is that when I went home to break up with the fiance, my parents threw me out.
Ooh.
So I went home for spring break, and my mother, I didn't know at the time, because when you grow up in a house like this, you assume everybody is just like that. She was mentally ill, and I didn't know it until I got out. And then I was like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so my dad tried the best. He gave me some cash and called my friend Stacy, and she helped me move. Henry was there at some point because he's still very proud of the nickname he got from my mother, which was the devil's disciple on earth. I know it goes really dark.
Spicy.
Yeah.
but-
He's going, the kid's going places. Yeah.
That was the beginning of our relationship. And at the time, there was, a lot going on in my life, I had to couch surf a bit. The first summer, I think I did work crew. I don't know if you've had anybody do work crew. Work crew is an experience on the new college campus.
Yeah, I've
A
heard
lot of
stories.
paint, right?
Yeah.
A lot of paint, a lot of drywall, a lot of living in B dorm. It was kind of awesome. And, working with Morning Bob.
I was about to ask about Morning Bob. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Morning Bob and John Vitriglia and a few other people on the crew. I can't name drop right now, but
Yeah.
Did you get to know Morning Bob? Like really get to know him? Because I feel like
he was unknowable, but it was more Johnny V.
Yeah.
Johnny Vitriglia was the boss. And we used to, I have some crazy shit when you're cleaning out dorm rooms.
I
Oh,
bet.
yeah, you probably found
college.
some good stuff.
what's the
Yeah.
worst thing you found?
One which made quite the impression on both of us, and we collected like old refrigerators, old ironing boards, appliances, just all the stuff would just get piled out into the middle. But I told this at the reception that we walk into a room and we would all scatter, like we would work in pairs and go into the rooms and we'd each clean them out.
Yeah.
And Michelle and I end up in this room and there's like this tissue box on a wall. It's like a cover for a tissue box, one of the long ones with an opening
Yeah.
hanging on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do you think that is?
Yeah.
And we pulled it down and a frog hopped out of it and
Aw.
scared the shit out of both of
Yeah.
us. So, we were
Was it a
doing
pet?
God's
Do you think it
work.
was a pet frog, or we're not?
We really don't know, but he was very happy to be rescued.
I'm sure.
And, after they peeled us off the ceiling, we were good. And so that was a great experience. And, one summer I was with my brother, one summer on work crew.
Yeah.
Another summer I lived with Henry's mom.
And this would have been in the 1990s, I guess.
It would have been 80. I entered in 87 and I graduated in 90.
Okay.
And he and I were together probably on and off until 97, 7
Okay.
or 10 years.
Yeah.
And then, we separated. I wanted to get married. He didn't.
Yeah.
And he never got married. And
Right.
so I went on and I married somebody else and had 2 really great kids. Josh was 22 and Melena's 19. But Grant knows this. We have a friend, Jim Kelly, who passed away in August of 2013, I think.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And it really, I was an old married lady, mid-40s, couple of kids, and I hadn't really been hanging out with the new college crew in a while. You get busy, you're living life. And although Jim wasn't a new college student, he was there so much, and we all
He's
knew
been around.
him, and we had all hung out even after graduation, watching X-Files together and multiple roommates. And so when he passed away, it really stunned me. It really, like I'd had 3 friends pass away in that summer, but Jim in particular really kind of broke my heart. And I remember being at his parents' house on the Intercoastal, and they have hammocks, and when we were all hanging out there, and I was just acknowledging just how deeply unhappy I was in my marriage and life. And I thought, what am I doing? Like it could all end.
Yeah.
If you're not happy, you better get happy. And so we kind of, left it at that. I had to go do some work
Some parenting.
on some parenting, work on the marriage. When a marriage breaks up, it's not simple.
Work. Yeah.
In the midst of this, I go on LinkedIn because I realized that Henry, who knew Jim from, I think, elementary school days,
Yeah, they're both from Lake
did not know. And so I sent him a note because I was also in that moment, like, here are all the people who have been important to me in my life. Even his mother, she took me in for a summer.
Yeah.
And I was reaching out like, hey, one, I don't know if you've heard, but Jim passed away. And also, how are you? I'm kind of checking on all my people. And that's when we and I think at some point, the 50th anniversary of New College happened around these times.
Yeah.
And
2011.
reunion.
2011.
Yeah,
2011. Yeah. 2011 was the party.
Reunions were happening, and I just realized how important that period of time was to me. And when someone has gone to New College, there's almost a shorthand that you kind of know their values. Not to say that we're all exactly the same, but you know what you've been through, and the daemon helps with that.
Right.
So Henry and I started talking again. Actually, our first meeting was in the parking lot of a hospital because his mom was in the hospital, and he was afraid. He wanted me to see her just in case.
Yeah.
Right? She was in her 80s. She had pneumonia, and they had induced a kind of not a coma, but she was
Like a twilight.
Yeah. And, it was a reunion with her, and he and I started talking again. He had, again, never married, and I wouldn't say we picked up where we left off, but it was like a do-over.
Yeah.
And me being extremely skeptical, I was like, well, I've been here before.
Right.
So what are your intentions, sir? And, I personally have no interest in getting married. I have no interest in going down that path. So I kind of, I had already left my marriage, bought a place, was living on my own, had my kids, and I really, just kind of kept them at arm's length.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to see how things were, and I got kids to worry about.
Yeah. But then fast forward, there is a penguin over your shoulder.
Yeah. So in 2019, he proposed underwater. He managed to get the kids certified so they could be there for the whole thing. And I was oblivious. And
Wait. Certified
scuba divers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like in the spring break of 2019. I am a highly suspicious person, and he managed to do this without me noticing that he was planning it. Henry likes to chase once-in-a-lifetime experiences.
I see.
So when we first got together, he's like, I want to buy a car, and let's drive around Europe for 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Then it was, I want to go to Egypt for my 50th birthday. That's awesome. I want to climb Mount Sinai. Hold up, wait.
Yeah.
And so this one was, if we get married, I want to get married in a place that no one has ever stepped.
Yeah.
Okay, Henry, how are we going to manage that?
Only if Musk was a couple years ahead of time.
Yeah.
He could have done that on Mars. But...
On Mars, yeah. Let's hold your story. Stuart's coming in. We haven't heard from Stuart yet. Let's get a little bit of the Stuart backstory, but that's the through line of the wedding. And then there was a ceremony. So there was stuff in Antarctica. There was more stuff on campus. We'll get into that in a bit. And then we're going to want to talk more about the alumni scene. But Stuart, how about you? Can you catch us up a little on your background? And
oh, goodness, sure thing. So let's see. I guess I'm finding out even from our core group here that some stuff's in common. So New College was the only place I'd applied for as well. I had, first of all, Grant and I kind of go way back. I think we were like, 14 or something when we started playing Dungeons and Dragons together.
Oh,
So
wow.
when Stranger Things came out, that was a real recall in a sense, right?
Yeah.
That was the beginning of a kind of lifelong relationship. I don't know how else to say that. I was recently married back in November 23. Grant co-officiated the ceremony. So that's how I met Grant. And we had decided in high school, we went to different high schools, that we were I found out he was going to New College. I was like, let's be roommates. And so we got there.
We both had applied separately, totally not knowing it. And we're like, at a gaming table, like, where are you going to go to school? I'm going to go to this little place in Sarasota called New College. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I was going to go there too. It was like a weird moment. Like, oh, you heard of that place?
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, okay, I guess we got to be roommates.
At a gaming table.
Try to be roommates at a
Yeah.
gaming table.
Yeah.
And
Ice
might have been a
everywhere.
gaming floor. I don't remember. It was probably a table.
Yeah.
And
There's no LARPing though. You're not in costume. You're just using your imagination.
Costume.
yeah, we
No
weren't
costumes.
LARPing then.
Yeah.
But let's see, then as far as New College and how I found out, we had a student rep come from the college and did a presentation at my high school. And I went to this small high school over in Palm Beach.
Hey, you went to a
And,
fancier high school than me, man.
Well, see, and that's kind of the thing, dude, right? You remember this. I was too afraid to go to UF, where I, in fact, have been working for the last quarter century. But
Right.
Go Gators.
Grant went, hey, we just had that big weekend.
Yeah,
I'm
oh,
trying
yeah.
not to go there, but it was
Yeah.
pretty cool. But I knew I needed to get a different political perspective that was more well-rounded without having to go to a huge university. And so, because it was a very small high school. And so I was a junior, and the New College presenter came around, and I was pretty much sold by the end of it. I also got to skip Spanish class that day, which was great because the teacher was also my varsity coach, lacrosse, and we hated each other. And so I got to avoid that. And I would say the rest is more or less history. Let's see. So New College, there's something I found I learned there, which is self-reliance, or at least the need for it. I was not nearly as self-reliant as I needed to be and self-responsible.
Yeah.
And
None of
ended
us
up,
were.
I ended up finishing my degree out at FAU back in 93.
Okay.
But then I went on to do my master's down there, and I found that my life has been split up into phases. So, Monica, we're going to save the 6-week marriage for another episode. All right. I'm just going to drop that.
Oh, man, I remember that.
And,
Yeah.
I also want to highlight that I was your roommate at one point.
yes, yes,
Oh.
Monica was the roommate for the happy year that I was not Grant's roommate.
Mm.
Yeah. Was Henry in the military at that point?
No, Henry was in Navy Reserve before, but he studied overseas,
Okay.
Freiburg and Vienna. So he was hardly ever on campus, to be blunt.
Yeah.
Wolf. Yeah, Wolf. Yeah, Wolf.
And Wolf.
Yeah.
See. Ja. So we're not talking about the 6 weeks. I will say Grant and Jim, who Monica was referring to, our late friend, were my two groomsmen back then.
Okay.
But even they couldn't make it last longer than 6 weeks. So my mom had gotten cancer. So for most of the 90s, I was taking care of her. Then I had the Britney Spears short-term marriage. Then I ended up
Not with Britney Spears, because the
No.
90s she was
No.
on the market, and I don't recall you. Okay.
No.
Yes.
No, this one didn't shave her head.
She was blonde, though.
Yeah.
She was blonde.
She was
She was
blonde.
blonde. And it was actually because of her that I ended up in Gainesville. And then shortly after that, 9/11 happened and the job market disappeared. And so I was kind of stuck in Gainesville.
Yeah.
And so along with that self-reliance of New College, I think one of the other things that comes along is I don't know, for me, I'm going to say selfish. I've always tried not to be selfish, but it's me, myself, and I sometimes. And so I don't want to say that stuck, but I didn't get married for a long time after that. I kind of threw myself into work and I've been in several different positions here through the years. And I did go to the reunion in 2010 for the 50th in 2011. And that brought me back to the college. Before then, there was a gap of at least a decade, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm still doing my thing here, and I'm kind of keeping a pulse and an eye. I went to a subsequent reunion, and it was kind of scary. There were police everywhere. And I was like, what's going on? So then when 2 presidents ago, President O'Shea, and those scandals kind of popped, I kind of hung the hat up on it for a while, right? On the whole alumni engagement thing. Because I was like, my life is too busy to advocate,
Yes.
but I don't need to be involved. And more lately, I've kind of changed my tune a bit on stuff.
Right.
Before the Alumni Association.
We kind of wanted to get there, because both you and Monica have tossed your respective hats in the ring to represent on the New College Alumni Association.
Yeah, that was Grant's hat.
I was like, whose bright idea was this?
Grant.
But I will
Sure.
say,
Sorry.
I think even before Grant, I remember I telling Henry about it. His office, his desk is right next to mine.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should do that. And I was like, okay, we all know how well I play with others. So
You actually do.
I try.
You do. And my feeling is I had been up here at UF for all these years. As I look toward retirement, hopefully in the not too far a future, I was starting to look at things beyond just the job, right? And my wife and daughter, center of my universe, but, and I mean that, I'm so, going back to that 6-week marriage, this is at 56 when I
Much
got
better.
married. It has been a rejuvenating at the core of my soul experience. And knock on wood, we all stay healthy. But that kind of, it re-inspired my, this is going to sound cheesy, but it's the truth, to re-engage in areas. And now that I had a little bit of wisdom from some of my mentors through my career, to see if I could do the give back. And I'm also trying to be a role model for our daughter. She's a sophomore in high school. And
so she's going to be applying next year, right?
Right. And so I almost brought her actually to last week's alumni event. And I'm happy I didn't because of the potential trigger situation that occurred. But no, I was really, she doesn't need to see that yet.
No.
Or at least not without context ahead of time.
Right.
Which we weren't expecting anything. With context, it'd have been fun.
Yeah.
And so I feel like what I'm trying to do, being at UF and going through the state politics here and all, one of my goals is kind of differentiate between what are some of the new college opportunities specifically, and then what are some things happening at the state level, and tease them apart. Also look at how we've handled some of those state initiatives here at UF and see if we could translate that down to our old school, right? Where the students as a whole, and I've met several at this point, different experiences, but I think the alumni, different and honestly, surprisingly, slightly better than I expected when I look at this through my alumni lens. And it's like, the perception I get frequently is the world has come to an end. How did I lose my head? And I'm happy that's not affecting the students. I mentioned last week at the reception and to the alumni committee, I was like, my goal here is students first, whether they are traditional students or new students, they are students. I don't care if they play ball as well and have a lower GPA. I don't want them to be thrust into the middle of this drama. That seems, from what I've learned, also to be a recurring theme at our university. Such like I've heard, I think Matt Reynolds, right? Matt was telling me that, I think it was Matt, or no, it might have been Jono.
Jono's the older one.
Yep. No, I know them both. I'm just forgetting which one told me stuff.
A lot
I think it was
happened.
Jono. He was saying that when we folded into USF, the same thing happened. And everybody that came in under USF was considered, in today's speak, mid or mediocre compared to the legacy students.
Nice.
And everybody, the four of us,
we're all
and
USF.
Monica, we're all USF admits at the same cohort.
And we were the ones that would get the report card sent to our parents with 0 grade point average.
Right.
We had no grade.
Right.
And I mean, I will admit, I believe I got in based on essays and not test scores. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But, Stuart, when you go back to talking about why you decided to throw your hat in, one of mine was I had been reading this Timothy Snyder on tyranny book. It was kind of making around. Second position is defend institutions. And I felt like, especially in the midst of the election and whatever was happening with New College, I remember being at New College with Mish. I've got so many pictures of me with my kids in Palm Court. I actually thought they might go there, but it just...
You bought a brick there too, don't you have a brick?
Yeah, we've got a brick. Ours is next to Mac Miller's. But, I remember, I think this was around the first administration of He Who Shall Not Be Named. And I thought, as long as places like New College still exist, we're going to be okay. And then 5 years or so, we realized that New College had a target on its back, rightfully or wrong, I don't know. But this idea of defending institutions, specifically institutions that mean something to me. Like Henry is, he's a lawyer, been working in Palm Beach for 30 years. The ABA is now, the Justice Department lawyers aren't allowed to participate in the ABA. And the American Bar Association is somehow too liberal.
Right.
So my thing is, got the book. It is institutions that help us to preserve decency, and they need our help as well. Do not speak of, quote, our institutions unless you make them yours by acting on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. And what was the name of the book again?
On Tyranny.
On Tyranny.
John Lithgow just did a really nice dramatic reading of it recently.
I mean, so my feeling was I am not going to complain about what's happening. I am going to try and help in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
Now, my professional career after New College, because I thought I was going to be a composition teacher. And then I realized that adjuncts make less per hour than McDonald's employees.
Yeah.
No disrespect to McDonald's employees, but I needed to make a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And I ended up going into publishing, but the bulk of my career was working PR and comms for a security company and dealing with crisis communications. So I see a lot of almost flat-footed PR in what's happening with New College. I'm not saying that you can put spin on and make anything palatable. What I'm saying is, and the thing that Stuart and I tried to highlight during that alumni event for the few minutes that we got to interact with him, was that there is some common ground. There are, I hate to use the word, but low-hanging fruit that has not been communicated to the alumni because we as an alumni association have been kind of hemmed in and slowed down. So for anybody who's listening, who wants to reach out and offer their help and support, because we want to get the Nimbus up and running again. We want to get the newsletter running again. And we don't necessarily have the bandwidth to take that all on. But my feeling was to go in there and work through that.
I like the positioning of the communication problem as being an area of focus, because I don't think I'd heard anybody say that before. And that actually does make sense to me, where it seems like the outreach over the years from the alum, even pre-takeover.
Oh, very much.
Was never that great. And then maybe bringing you back in, Stuart, can you describe the event that we're talking about? Because I don't know if we laid it out specifically for folks, but there was an alumni event last week. Can you set the stage for that?
Yeah, I can. Can I do a quick segue off Monica's?
Please.
To introduce it. So, and I agree with what you just said about alumni engagement, for lack of a better phrase. And rarely have I been contacted by the alumni, if ever, prior to very recently. So this definitely predates the current administration. I am not throwing shade on any specific thing. It's just a longstanding issue.
Did you not get the phone calls? That was the best thing ever in through the 90s. The phone calls from current students saying, "Hey, could you chip in $5?"
Yeah,
I got those.
I used to love those.
Yeah, but they used to turn into 20-minute conversations.
Yeah.
It was super inefficient.
I got the calls, but the calls were fundraising calls from students. I was very charmed that the students were involved in their own welfare in that sense. Yeah. But I would have liked to have also heard from folks that were no longer students that had, graduated, right? And that was missing. It's still missing. And there's maybe a reactionary justification for that missing right now. But, as we come into it, sometimes my experience recently, and it's very understandable, has been that there are a lot of reactionary opinions, and they're justified, but they're also woefully uncoordinated. And so they sometimes defeat our own, as an alumni body, our own purpose, whether it be a protest or an initiative. And one of the things I'm trying to really head off is some communication. We did have one of the things we were going to try to work at the event, which I'll hop into in half a moment, of last week, was to try and secure funding for the next alumni reunion, which was derailed by an unexpected and well-intentioned voice of protest and kind of took that off the table. Had we planned it ahead of time, we could have at least tweaked the timing of it a little bit. You know, Monica speaks to opportunity and those low-hanging fruit. I don't want to promise things. I'm just going to be transparent. I've been told by foundation leadership that we will now be getting a dedicated fund line for SRTG. I've been told that we will be getting control of our own website back on the Alumni Association.
That's something.
And so I have made progress on that directly. I haven't announced it because until it's there, it's not there. I'm not questioning intent. Again, I've worked at UF for too long, and I find that when something is promised and there is trust, it will happen. But what might be a week turns into 9 months. So hopefully that's not the case here. This is what we're working toward. And what I am meeting with is and I say this honestly, it's a receptive point of view. Yeah, you think that would help? Yeah, I do. Actually, I think that's a great offering of a way to at least start a conversation and see where else we can grow, where we can grow together. One of the points, and I'm going to hush up, let's pass the torch back to Monica, is, you know, we're kind of throttled at the state level in terms of like, you know, words I'm not supposed to say. So I guess I won't say them, but I'll say gender with a 3 instead of an E, you know, we'll do it like in hacker speak. That's at the state level. And I feel like we're spinning our wheels if we really protest that hard at the college level right now. Instead, the person that was, you know, kind of making her opinions known at this meeting last week, one of her other main points was that the academics had slid. I think that is something that we could probably all work on together fairly easily. I think leadership also wants better academics. And from what I understand from student leadership, they are in fact engaged with our new students, our younger students, and holding them far more accountable than maybe the institution that I'm physically closer at right now. And not to say we don't do it here. I don't want to get myself in trouble. We do, but there is an extra focus on that right now at New College. And I'm hearing that from both the leadership as well as the student body itself, from the student body leadership, the NCSA. So that's kind of neat. The reception, Monica, I'm going to let you pipe in. I'll just start it off. It was a small group, Monica and Michelle and Diana. Diana is one of my colleagues here at UF. She works for Institute for Food and Agricultural Sciences. She's also one of our board members on the Alumni Association, also one of our cohort. We did get a bunch of Gen X in on this one. This is all Grant's fault, by the way. All of it. All of it. We drove down from Gainesville together. My wife came with us, and we went to the affair.
And we had to hustle to get there. I mean, there's no question.
We were running a hair late.
Can I butt in again?
Go ahead.
I just want to say, it's important context. This is what, a week after you just had your wedding?
Yes.
So the wedding was February 1st, Antarctica. The reception was March 22nd with you giving the blessing. Then April 4th, I think was a Friday, was the reception. And I'm like, well, shit, it looks like I'm going to Sarasota again. And so we rented an Airbnb. And so just relay that there is significant effort being made here. And my goal is to work within the system with the administration that we have. Because I want New College to survive this period of time. Right? I don't know. I would guess that many people who are currently working for New College in an administrative role had never heard of the place 10 years ago. So they do not have it. You know, what I tried to reiterate to them was that students, alums care very deeply about this campus. They care very deeply about the logo. some of them have tattooed it on their body.
Yeah.
So when you randomly change things,
Mhm.
so, I went with a specific set of questions, drove 3.5 hours, got to speak maybe 20 words to Corcoran, and then it devolved. It
Yeah.
devolved the word. So
Evolved is the
It
word.
is.
and while I can appreciate the individuals, this is with every new college student I ever interacted with. We all have such great opinions, but sometimes you don't need to vet your spleen right at that moment.
Right.
And what happened is it just went sideways very fast. And Stuart and I, applied our money, time, and effort, and we got maybe 15 minutes with it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to highlight. There were other board members present who had questions, who didn't get to ask anything.
Yeah.
And while it was President Corcoran's choice to leave a little bit early, I did not see him leave.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
Jump
Right.
in. That was a very heated conversation. A conversation is conversation is a super understatement. This was a screaming match.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be honest.
Actually, it wasn't a match. It was a
No.
screaming act.
It was
and
a
then-
one way. And then, and then another alumni got involved, and then it got weird. And then I think President Corcoran left in case something went down.
I think
It's
he was
probably
trying to
that's
remove himself to prevent it from escalating. And, I've worked with.
I'll give a throw out, Monica. Nobody was removed from that event. No alumni was removed.
No, I know.
I think that was taking the
removed
high road.
himself.
Honestly, that was
Yeah.
kind of taking the high road. He removed himself.
Because
And-
if he stayed, alumni probably would have been removed. Someone was going to get removed.
It was necessary. Unfortunately, it would have probably been necessary.
And some of the things that are said to the administration, and again, I am not everybody's parent. I've had a lot of time in corporate environments in very complicated, challenging conversations. I understand. I even told the person who was in the center of it, I said, I understand what you're saying. I question your methods
Yeah.
because we've made no progress. We've actually lost the ability. And
I mean, Cory
And-
Booker just was talking for 25 hours and might have gone to people's heads. It's the question of extreme tactics. When are extreme tactics in order? And I think the challenge is if people take extreme tactics, those of us who are saying, let's not do that right now, lose out
Well,
because once
yeah.
somebody goes, they're gone.
there are plenty of new college, the New College Alliance. There are plenty of outside organizations that are, in the way I look at it, they are the watchdogs, right? There was some talk about disaffiliation of the NCAA from the foundation. Those were decisions. The affiliation, that was a decision made in the early 2000s.
Right.
The board actually voted to stay under the mantle of the foundation as it exists right now, because again, our argument is if we disaffiliate, which it's not happening, but if we did, they would just start another alumni association.
Right.
So I'm not doing that. I'm working from within with the administration under the mantle of we are part of this institution. And with all due respect, I am not walking away. And, now I'm really glad that I have Stuart and Diana, and I think the team, and no disrespect to Ben either. He made his decision.
No, not at all.
It's not an easy role to play. And yes, we're asking others to throw in their hat for the next election in April because we need help.
And Ben leaving, in some ways is a turning of the page too, because it's not like that was a a wonderful set of chapters in our history. It was a really hard time that he was leading through, and now there's new blood, I guess, on the Alumni Association. You guys are great examples of it, coming in after the takeover with new thinking, whether it's institutionalist or otherwise, but there's an opportunity to kind of engage with new people with new energy and kind of see where that goes.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're kind of like the USF students back in the old days, coming to new
Right.
people, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just a extremely practical person. Like let's just take it where we are. Who's in charge? Who do we need to talk to? Where can we find points of agreement? There, again, I go back to, there are watchdog groups that can take on some of those more controversial elements. If
Right.
somebody wants to talk about whether gender studies is allowed and DEI is allowed, then
Yeah.
please redirect that to the right,
Right.
place. The Alumni Association is trying to establish communication with the alumni.
Right.
We'll take on issues later. We just got to get the wheels on the bus again,
Mhm.
because it was almost, not working.
Yeah.
So let's get it working, and regular meetings and some reliable communication with our alums. We've lost them,
Yeah.
and they've either become disengaged, or they are, the only thing they're reading about is the negative news in the media. And
Yeah. There is a track record too of like alumni events that haven't gone well, so there is a
Yeah,
sense of like,
that's-
let's try to play ball, and then it's Lucy pulling the ball out from Charlie Brown. And
right.
there's only so many times, folks will be willing to put themselves out there without saying, okay, we can't really trust, they're not acting in good faith.
Are you referring to the Q&A with no cues?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, and goodness, let's figure out what we're going to edit out here, Grant. But I was just joining the Alumni Association when I don't even think I had been made a part of the board, but I inserted myself into a call where those questions were shared in a spreadsheet. I saw them. I have worked with global leaders. I would never have put those questions unedited in front of Corcoran.
Mm.
I would have given him a general sense of the feeling and where the hot buttons are.
Yeah.
But to hand him a full
Expletive
spreadsheet,
lady.
a full spreadsheet of vitriol is really not. So I don't know how it was presented to him. It was never managed. It was just handed over, and it was so much worse that it should have been canceled altogether than to actually present it as a Q&A.
Right.
And I go back to, CEOs, presidents, high-level executives, they're not used to getting this kind of vitriol in their face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're not.
Right.
I mean,
I'm reminded of Cool Hand Luke, and what we have here is a failure to communicate. And then and then I think there's also an opportunity cost around like choosing to communicate versus choosing other tactics. And to your point, Monica, like there's more than one faction out there. I'd say, just as like I like to be sort of like the low information voter here. Like, it's hard to navigate which places I need to go to do what kinds of things. And that's where I think the disengagement kicks in, where you're like, wait, how many organizations are there? What are they focused on?
Right.
Who do I need to listen to? And I want to make sure we come back a little bit to the wedding and like the
You wanna make-
experiences
You want some love?
campus,
I just-
Just
end with a lovely wedding, but I do want to make a plea on something, or at
Please.
least not a plea, but a call to taking a step back and thinking about something. This institution's been around for a while, and it's been through various shifts. My hope is that we're going through a shift that is very uncomfortable to a significant portion of the alumni, including myself. But nonetheless, like Monica, I think we persevere and see it through. At one point, Florida will no longer be full of boomers and Midwestern politics. To the point, though, there's opportunity here as well. And my other kind of stated goal, aside from I do want to bring the academics back to where I remember them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shared goal. I think that's that's one of those low hanging fruit where we can work
common
together.
ground. Yeah.
The other bit of it is the survival of the university, right? So right now we have our, President Corcoran and his administration. And, that's fine. The governor flipped this thing on its head and did that, and then has put other policies in place statewide. In as much as New College of Florida is concerned, my second overarching goal, I'm willing to work with whoever I need to work with as an honest broker. I'm good with that. What I want to do is I want to see this place survive. I don't want to see it get closed because a governor down the road says this is costing too much money per student, and it becomes an extension of the Ringling campus and another house to look through.
Yeah.
And then the airport takes the east side of campus.
Yeah.
So toward that, and this is me with my UF hat on, is we need scale of economy, because if we were part of South Florida, a lot of stuff gets a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff gets a lot cheaper. I am not pushing the merge. There's been in the news, the other item's been, New College is trying to take over FSU's Ringling and USF Sarasota Manatee. If we put our political thoughts or concerns aside that some of us might have, that might be a very wise business venture, because that might be enough growth to remain independent, and by extension of that, to remain.
Yeah.
Because I think this is very much an existential threat in today's world, where it's a public university. It's not private. We don't have a big endowment like a private one does. We've got to figure out how to make this work. If we are not going to fold into someone else's campus at some point, we need to grow, because I think otherwise we butt against something.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out to everybody from a business perspective, because that's what I see here at Florida. And I'm not going Florida, but I see how we barely get by having things be a bit cheaper, because there's just so many darn people here.
Yeah.
And we don't have that leverage at New College. Growth is maybe one way to compensate for that. And so I just throw that out with a good intent.
Yeah.
Think about it, not just in the politics and dismay of the moment, but as a genuine opportunity for the long term. So Monica, what were you going to say? I'm good.
I think everyone was so excited back in the day when Jeb Bush made New College independent. And now we look back and go, oh,
Yeah.
maybe USF wasn't so bad after all. But, I am truly concerned about the lifespan of the school if things don't change for the better.
Yeah.
And I know that alumni engagement is one of those key performance indicators. So my feeling is and this is where Stuart and I are working, is if the alumni concern is with regards to how the funds are used, we will address that, because we will make sure that we know how they're used when we raise them. We can only tackle so much. So again, whatever point of the spectrum anybody's on, and my sole goal is a thriving New College based on the system, the contract system that I remember, and the low student to professor ratio. That was the primary driver for me.
Yeah.
So you want to hear about a wedding?
Yeah, we got to bring it home. That's the big home.
Wait. I got one more comment. I've got to fill in.
All right.
But I do want to say that I think it's important. I just want to recognize that as much as emotions have been so strong lately, I do feel a genuine reach out from the current administration to try to right things and get things working. Aside from President Corcoran not removing anybody from the reception, he very much made it both verbally clear and clear from comprehension that he had read through all of the transcript of our last alumni meeting proactively. I respect that.
Did he use an LLM? I mean, those notes can be kind of long. I don't know.
They were long, but he was obviously familiar with them.
Yeah.
Even if he chat GPT'd and said, give me a summary, he did that. I appreciate that effort a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and that's why I'm willing to work with him. The other thing is when I sent out introductory notes to administrative leadership, this was on a Sunday afternoon, and within 30 minutes, guess who had written me back? saying that he was looking forward to working together on stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly, and I know folks are going to be like, oh, Stu, really? But yeah, honestly, I could show you. It's the
Yeah.
truth. So
Mhm.
I am at least willing to engage and entertain in a sincere way, see where we can make this work.
Yeah.
And where we can't make it work, we'll focus on where we can first and the harder areas down the road.
And to me, it comes back a little bit to what Monica was talking about around communication too. Like, you both are communicating very clearly what you're doing with your role, the way you think of the Alumni Association moving forward. And then if you and the current association continues to share that transparently, we understand how stuff's going, which is why it's great to have you even on here, that we're engaging in a dialogue. We can kind of get a feel for what you're trying to accomplish, where you're trying to go.
I love what Monica, you're trying to carve out like your space. You can't tackle everything. Has there been any outreaches? One of the things that's happening is the kind of fractalization of the alumni, especially with the alternate alumni association. So again, like if I have money to donate, I'm like, where best should I put that money? And I know one of the things, for at least for me, for a donation is I want to see it go towards helping the students and helping maybe providing a scholarship for more of the academic scholarship, not for an athletic scholarship. So I, and in 2 years, what's going to happen? It's like sort of this more long-term thinking. In 2 years, the alumni are going to be the ones that came in after the takeover, and kind of curious what your thoughts are and just like reaching out to that other association, and also like what are the plans for continuing to support the existing and future alumni, even though they may not share, our core experience at New College.
So going to the communication portion, because there are those alliances that are outside of the NCAA. My feeling is we can highlight them. I think Grant can speak more as to how they delineate from each other.
Maybe.
My thing, I mean, some of the leadership of these outside organizations are actually on the NCAA, right? And the specific funding that I'm focused on right now is that SRTG funding. The student research travel grant, those are for conferences, research, really just being able to help them. Diana is leading our student support committee. So whenever for example, we've been hearing that some of our current students need summer housing. I would have been one of those students, right? But for the fact that I could do work crew. So that's the type of thing that has been coming from the outside organizations, because the inside foundation can't quite figure out how they want to manage summer housing for students. That's not in their purview. So I would say making sure that our alumni understand what these different organizations are doing. But for now, NCAA, I would focus on SRTG and getting that line item and knowing that the money that we're raising is being used in a way that we know how. And it's not just alums that are on the committee that are awarding it, it's members of the administration, but we have at least 3 alums that are on there. So I believe you had Steve Jacobson on the podcast before.
Oh, yeah.
So Steve is I call him my curmudgeon. He's like the angry man shouts at sky, and he's on the engagement committee. And I have tasked him with really helping comb through how we talk about the SRTG fund, so that when we start fundraising with our alumni, that we have a single voice, a single way of describing it, and that it's clear on the website and clear in the newsletter. And, he was all in, because I felt like Steve is my test focus group, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Steve can see it, read it, believe it, and advocate for it, then I have made some progress.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping for. And it really goes back to, are we helping the students? That's the goal.
Yeah.
So
talked a lot about the alumni event. Concluding thoughts, and feel free to hit on anything across the full gamut. Bonus points if you can connect your marriage and lessons learned from your marriage to how we should engage with the Alumni Association.
It's been a
moving
long
forward.
journey.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that you cannot get married at the North Pole, even if you want to,
Yeah.
because the Love Boat lied to us. Captains cannot marry you legally. So the North Pole is actually international waters. And so Henry was vexed. This took him years to plan. I just sat here and watched him yell at the screen. And then we finally found this company called Adventure Travel. And they were like, tell us what you want to do. We'll figure it out. So he said, when we got on the cruise, he said, my goal is to get married where nobody else has stood. This is what our plan was, but wherever you take us, we're good.
Yeah.
And we had a wonderful couple of days, went through Drake's Passage. Everybody was highly medicated. And then we came to this area. Now I can't remember the name, but I have the coordinates. And the weather was beautiful. We had just crossed into the Antarctic Circle. There was a whole ceremony. People had to kiss fish and drink shots. And we were out on the deck, and our expedition leader, we walked up to him, and Henry was like, man, we're supposed to get married tomorrow on the 2nd, but man, the weather today is gorgeous. Do you think it'll hold? And the expedition leader was like, how you said you wanted to get married on a place that no one has ever stood and that only exists for a period of time? He goes, right straight ahead is an ice shelf. We only just broke through that today, and that's only going to be here for, the season.
Wow.
Can you be ready in about an hour? And I was like, okay. So we do the ceremony. It's very quiet. We have our little princess bride moment. We put a little God in there. We do our vows, and then we do the legal part, which is I know of no reason why I cannot. And I do take this person. And when Henry starts to say his vow, we get a squawk, and we get our wedding crasher joins us, our little Adelie penguin. There he is.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
So
Perfect.
we
Very
found
perfect.
out.
Fleetwood Mac album.
Right.
Wow.
And my photographer said, please tell people that it's my lens that makes him look closer, because you're supposed to be 15 feet away.
Oh,
We were 15 feet away.
yeah.
He came to us.
Sure.
No lie. We
The
found
ice shelf's melting. I mean, there's a point at which it's safety first,
right? So what had happened was we were going through the ceremony, and one of the expedition team, we got her video later. It's an 8-minute video where she started on us, and then you can see this penguin. He's like a football field away, making his way over on his belly.
Wow.
Like he's late to something.
Yeah.
It's priceless.
So we ended up putting that all together, and my son made the video for us. And,
I was thinking Hugh Grant, and now suddenly it's maybe like a Pixar movie or something. I don't know. You're going in
Little Happy
surprising
Feet.
directions here. Yeah.
so he lived on that. We're still not quite recovered from that high.
Bet.
Like it was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then, got on the boat afterwards and got married pretty early in the cruise, so that the rest of it was just gravy.
And then came back, and your reception, I hear, was college balls.
Yeah.
Not a bad
It was
choice for
incredible.
folks looking
Right?
for
There was even
places.
an iceberg
There
they
you
brought
go.
back with them.
It was all Antarctica themed, although Henry's like, please do not go over the top.
Yeah.
Whose idea was the ice sculpture?
Oh, that was me.
That's
Come on. He didn't even know it was happening. He was like, what? And I kept telling him it was going to be a penguin ice sculpture. But we came down the stairs. So this was on March 22nd. There we go.
Oh.
I had the Game of Thrones on. Now, that fur came from Scotland. At the last minute, I called them and had them rush it because it's a tartan that's focused on German heritage, and that's Henry. And then
probably came in handy in Antarctica too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the ice sculpture.
There's the ice.
Ah,
It was a lot bigger
wow.
than it looks there too.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
look at the
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the hand thing you were doing, Grant. Yeah.
So, you know,
thing.
Mike, you mentioned earlier what you were asking about LARPing when we were
Yes.
talking about D&D, and just putting a 360 on this spin. You know, maybe the next alumni event, or if we have an alumni association meeting down in Sarasota, we all traveled for these last couple things.
Yeah.
If we travel again, we need either tuxedos or just outright penguin outfits.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Oh.
represent and come as a coordinated alum, because we're coming back to the nest, Monica. That's the
Right.
God's honest truth.
Honestly,
We all, but several of us traveled, you know, I mean, as a
Right.
group, when it's not been a reunion, we haven't been there.
Mm.
And maybe that could be the birth of something really amazing,
Well,
or at least
and-
something good.
Immediately,
And-
my mind went to Burgess Meredith on Batman, but that's just how I remember it. Oh,
Not
no.
Danny DeVito. You like you
That's
prefer
true.
the
That's true. The
Burgess
OG.
Meredith?
Yeah.
Well, and Grant can testify to this, that penguins are the sweetest, most curious, but man, oh man, they do have a smell. They do have a
They
scent.
got a smell.
It's
Even out
like-
in open air. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that could be
yeah,
said
like-
from a certain new college.
Right.
Students as well.
I'm
That with
just
a little
saying,
patchouli.
get a little patchouli, a little clove cigarette, and you'll be awesome.
Sandalwood and cloves and yeah.
All right. We had amazing conversation. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to Monica and Stuart for your first appearance. Thanks to Joanne for
Okay,
coming back.
do the heart. Do the heart.
To the heart.
A heart.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us on today's show.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having us.
much.
All right. We'll be back again soon. This is the Popcorn Podcast.